An Indy 500 legend will reportedly take on the high banks of Daytona, and NASCAR implements a 3-car per team limit with 2 notable exceptions. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope your weekend was half as fantastic as the show Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell put on Saturday night in the final laps of the Tulsa Shootout main event. At the end of 55 laps, it was Christopher Bell beating Kyle Larson by half a car length. Bell got out of the car in victory lane, and the first 4 words out of his mouth were,
"Thank you, Joe Gibbs."
That's right. A couple months ago, reportedly, Joe Gibbs Racing lifted the ban on extracurricular activities. Ty Gibbs has taken an interest in dirt racing. Chase Briscoe, his family, their legacy is dirt. Same goes for Christopher Bell. Coach Gibbs, I guess, was outnumbered with 3 of his young Cup Series stars wanting to go dirt racing. I'm glad Joe Gibbs allowed Christopher Bell to return to this event, return to his home state of Oklahoma. NASCAR desperately needs stars, and last night we saw Larson and Bell put their talent on full display. Bell is building his own brand, improving NASCAR's credibility, and in turn is boosting the popularity of the Cup Series team he drives for. I'm glad Joe Gibbs Racing sees value in Bell running these kinds of events. He didn't look rusty Saturday night, not one bit. Awesome race, fun off-season action. Let's talk about the upcoming NASCAR season. Before we know it, the Daytona 500 will be here. And the expected entry list just got way more exciting. This was the first report I saw this weekend. IndyCar legend Helio Castroneves will attempt to qualify for the Daytona 500 this year. Castroneves will join Chevy's Trackhouse racing team with Project 91. Whoa, is this legit? Tony Donahue, IndyCar reporter, appeared to confirm it, saying it was supposed to happen in 2024. After a year waiting, 4-time Indy 500 winner Helio Castroneves will attempt the 2025 Daytona 500. The Project 91 X account posted this ominous countdown. I'm recording this very early Monday morning, so maybe the official announcement has already been made. We'll have to wait and see, but it seems all but certain Helio Castroneves, IndyCar Indy 500 legend, will finally make his NASCAR debut, potentially in the sport's biggest race. Now, Project 91, the 91 car, did not race in 2024. Of course, won in 2023 at Chicago with SVG. That is not a chartered car. That will be an open entry. So Helio will have to qualify for the race, either on speed or through the dual races. I'm excited. I've only briefly met Helio Castroneves in person. It was at one of the SRX races a couple years ago in Nashville at the fairgrounds. But he's just got so much energy, so much enthusiasm. I know he is going to have a blast attempting to qualify for the Great American Race. Who would have guessed that in the first week of 2025, Helio Castroneves and Mike Wallace would announce Daytona 500 bids? What the heck is going on? Let's take a look at my updated Daytona 500 entry list tracker. So now, and I'm assuming these Castroneves reports are correct, we have 4 confirmed open entries. JJ Yaley with NY Racing, BJ McLeod with Live Fast Motorsports, Mike Wallace obviously with MBM, and now Castroneves. There are still plenty of unconfirmed entries. Legacy Motor Club with Jimmy Johnson, good chance they attempt the race. Rick Ware Racing in the 15, RCR the 33, Beard Motorsports, Team Amerivet in the 50, and then Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. says he's running the Daytona 500. There have been some interesting rumors this weekend that perhaps Tricon Garage could be the team fielding his car with Joe Gibbs Racing support. Of course, we'll see if that turns out to be true. That would be pretty wild, pretty crazy. But if we add all this up, that gives us 10 open entries. 36 charter teams plus 10, that's 46 Daytona 500 entries. That would have to be the largest Daytona entry list in nearly a decade, right? Usually we're in that 42, 43 car range, 45, 46. Whew, the duels just got a lot more interesting. I don't want to get ahead of myself because Helio still has to qualify for the race. That alone will be difficult, but assuming he makes the field, and again, I don't want to build too much hype because more than likely that will end in disappointment, but only 2 drivers ever have won the Indy 500 and the Daytona 500, and they are two of the greatest. They are the who's who in motorsports history. I'm talking about AJ Foyt and Mario Andretti. Helio Castroneves has a chance to join that prestigious list. He's already part of one extremely prestigious list, 4-time Indy 500 winner. If he goes to Daytona and is competitive, is in the mix, what a story we could be following in just a few weeks. Very exciting news. I'm excited for the official announcement. Helio Castroneves, according to reports, will attempt the Daytona 500. That's awesome. On the topic of charters, this season, the 2025 charter agreement goes into effect. Much of this agreement has been kept under wraps, but a few details have spilled out into the public. This weekend, Fox Sports' Bob Pockrass reported that under the new agreement, Cup Series teams will be limited to 3 chartered entries, 3 chartered cars per organization, but there are 2 notable exceptions. Pockrass writes, quote, "Teams that weren't 4 chartered teams previously are limited to 3 charters under the new agreement. They can run a 4th car as an open." So that means Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs Racing are the only teams allowed to field 4 chartered entries, which, I don't know, sounds kind of unfair to me. Is it crazy to suggest that having a 4th full-time car on track might give those teams a slight competitive advantage? I don't think so. It is worth noting that most other Cup Series teams seem to believe that 3 is the magic number. I went back and found this quote from Trackhouse owner Justin Marks. They just expanded to 3 chartered teams. This is what he said a few months ago, quote, "I've always thought that 3 teams is a really strong number of teams to have in this sport. It just gives you 33% more of an opportunity on the racetrack every weekend. Frankly, 4-car teams are reserved for really, really big companies in the sport, and it's tough to make 4 cars work." So you look around, Penske, take out the alliances, that's a 3-car team. Spire, now 3 cars. RFK, 2311 Trackhouse, 3 cars each. Front Row now has 3 charters, so maybe it's not a dramatic advantage for Gibbs or Hendrick, but I absolutely believe it could be. I feel like NASCAR either needed to force Gibbs and Hendrick to sell one of their charters, or they shouldn't have implemented this artificial cap at all. Or at the very least, there needs to be like a 2 or 3 year plan. Give the teams a couple of years to eventually downsize. I mean, that's what NASCAR did to Roush in the mid-2000s. Going back in history here, the last time I believe NASCAR implemented a limit on the teams, it was that then the 4-car per team limit was at the end of 2005. Go back in time. Jack Roush, Roush Racing, won back-to-back Cup championships in 2003, 2004, and then in 2005, 5 Roush cars made up half of the 10-car playoffs. Then it was called the Chase. Roush was dominating, and I think he felt that NASCAR's 4-car per team limit was targeting him. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But they didn't force Roush to downsize immediately. Roush continued to be a 5-car team until I think 2008 or maybe 2009. Actually, 2010 was Roush's first year as a 4-car team. They've never looked back since, but at least in the mid-2000s, NASCAR made it clear to Roush, hey, we'll allow you to honor your contracts with drivers and sponsors, but once those contracts expire, we expect you to downsize to match the rest of the field. There was a plan. Is there a plan for Gibbs and Hendrick, or are they going to be allowed to have an extra chartered car till the end of time? That's what I need to know. That's what I feel fans, the industry, needs to know. That does need to be clarified because, sure, a 4th car going from 3 to 4 may not be as advantageous as going from 2 to 3, but there's clearly an advantage to be gained having an extra car on track, extra data coming in. That absolutely could be seen as a slight competitive advantage for those 2 race teams. That's not fair. So I don't know who asked for this rule change. It doesn't sound like Trackhouse or any of these 3-car teams are that worried about it. I doubt Gibbs or Hendrick asked for it, so who asked for this? I'm confused. I found an old AP article from 2005, included a quote from then CEO Brian France, and he suggested that the reason for the 4-car per team limit was to make it easier for outside owners to come in and immediately be competitive. Brian France said at the time, quote, "We don't like the fact that the independent teams, or in particular a new owner looking at coming in the show, have a daunting task to compete. And the concept of having to have 5 teams, 3 teams, that means the opportunities aren't there for young drivers. It means opportunities aren't there to create the next Rick Hendrick and have the success. It ultimately means that we don't field as many competitive cars as we'd like to field." Maybe that argument made sense in 2005, but I don't think that argument would apply today in 2025. A lot has changed over the past 20 years. The current Cup Series field is as balanced and competitive, as close as it's ever been. The gap between 1st and 30th on the grid has never been closer. Back in 2005, teams would test on their own. Test. Having extra cars, greater resources, gave you a competitive advantage. Nowadays, private testing is all but banned. And nowadays, charter prices, that's the real barrier to entry. You're worried about independent owners getting into the sport. Look at the charter system. There's a $40-50 million upfront cost before you even get wheels on the track. So that argument from 2005, I don't feel applies in 2025. So why? Why this change? Who asked for this? This feels like something the France family forced through. Remember, it's been reported that under this new charter agreement, the France family would be allowed to own and operate their own Cup Series team. I know, tremendous conflict of interest. You're exactly right, but reports indicate they've tried to squeeze that in there. Maybe they did, and maybe there is a plan for Gibbs and Hendrick to eventually sell off a charter each. Maybe the France family scoops them up. Maybe that's how France family racing finally comes to be. Or maybe they want more charters potentially available for a new manufacturer if and when they join the sport. So I can come up with different theories, but there's no obvious answer, at least to me, sitting here right now. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't buy that this is about maintaining a competitive balance, because if that was the case, they wouldn't have grandfathered Hendrick and Joe Gibbs in and allowing them to keep a 4th charter. So I don't know who asked for this. I'd really be curious to know. Let me know your reaction down in the comment section below. Interesting news, no doubt. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed watching this episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the show. The season is right around the corner. You won't want to miss any upcoming episodes. Big thank you to my very generous Patreon supporters as well. Have a great rest of your Monday, folks. I will talk to you again very soon. Thanks again for watching.